Alright, everybody, how are we doing? You guys like this chapter? I thought this was a phenomenal chapter. People were wondering, are we going to come back to Egghead or are we going to come back to... I'm sorry, by the way, I have to keep my phone notifications on for certain reasons, so you might just hear random shit going on. But, yeah, I was wondering if we're going to go back to Egghead or if we're going to stay at Marineford, and the answer was neither. We are going to check out what's going on Hachinosu, and I really hope Oda stays here. Let's finish this scene out, right? Like, let's see what happens right here first. Andrew McCarthy, thanks for the 2,000 Blood Warrior. Sorry, I'm reading 1,000-Year Blood War. That's how I read it. TBWY fights drag in final act. What the fuck? What is this? What is this? What's TBWY? Am I crazy? What is this? People are asking about the car update. I really don't want to share any information just because I'm so fucking sick of it. Let's just say this. I do not have my car. I still do not have my car. I'm so sick of this. The headache that it has brought me. On Monday, I was kind of like, they'll probably find it. Right now, I'm kind of just like, okay, so they're not going to find it. I'll talk a tiny bit about the car, but I literally don't want to. It's just been such a headache this week. Monday, I was just with the mentality, they'll find it. Going through the process a little bit, I basically realized that it is unlikely that anybody is trying that hard to find this car. It was a while before a detective called me and was just like, hey, so I've started looking, like, not looking, but I've started looking into, like I finally got the information about your car situation. So I'm just like, well, at this point, they're probably in fucking Canada. I don't know where they sell cars. But it's just, enough stuff has happened that I'm just irritated about it. I'm just in the mode of like, okay, never buying a Hyundai again. I went to the rental place because Geico covers you for rental, and I was just like, yeah, my Hyundai got stolen, blah, blah, blah. They're just like, yeah, that's been happening a lot. I'm like, God fucking damn it. So the one piece of good news is that Hyundai is actually paying out people who've gotten their cars stolen because so many Hyundais have gotten stolen. So on top of Geico's insurance, I'll get paid out some extra money from Hyundai, which is nice, but overall it's just like the general headache that comes with this, and process of having to, because Geico doesn't want to just pay out straight up, right? Geico wants to, they need some proof of certain things. They need me to send them the police report. Getting the police report's a pain in the ass. They need images of like various documents and shit like that. So it's just a whole thing, and then eventually they will cut me a check for the car, assuming the car is not found, which I doubt it will be. They'll cut me a check for the car, after which I have to go through the car buying process, which is a pain, and then the registration, etc., blah, 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 blah. And then on top of that, you've got, I got to go through this shit with Hyundai if I'm going to try and get money out of Hyundai. So overall, I don't know. It's just a headache. But it is what it is. We will not talk about the car any further. Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 10. There are enough parallels to Marineford that I feel confident that Koby will lose someone close to learn about strength like Luffy. Justice will prevail, calls back to weaklings can't talk about justice. It does talk about, yeah. We've had so many quotes about justice throughout the series. I don't know if Koby's going to lose Garp just because I feel like Garp was set up from that, the Blackbeard scheme to basically be traded to gain status as, as a king and get access to Marisha. I do feel like he's going to go through with that. So I don't know if Garp dies here just because I think Garp dying, the reason I have to I don't know if you guys can hear my phone notifications. I have to keep my phone on just because just any sort of notifications about the car situation, I gotta be on, basically. But, because the police were very clear. If they call or email me about if they found the car, and I don't respond, then they will have the car towed, and then they will stop trying to contact me about it, and then I need to figure shit out myself, which I don't want to happen. Anyway, the Garp situation, I just don't know if Garp would die without Luffy being there, because ultimately, Koby's not such an important character, I don't feel, that like one of the most major character deaths in the story would be set up for Koby rather than it being something that directly affects Luffy first and foremost, you know? Like, what, Luffy's just gonna read about Garp being dead? I feel like you get so much more power out of it, of Luffy actually being there for Garp dying or something, you know? My opinion. Maybe Koby's more important than I think, but at the moment, he is not being shown to be too important, I don't feel. Name, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months, man. Mork, what do you think the odds are that Bogard pulls up and cuts the island in half? Odds of him pulling up in general. Dude, I'm so confused. Is the Bogard... Okay, can somebody clarify for me? Is the Bogard stuff a meme or is it a real thing? I don't know why so many people are... Like, cut the island in half? You think Bogard's, what, Mihawk level? What are you talking about? Why is Bogard... Bogard's not gonna cut... He's not gonna cut an island in half? I don't know if Bogard's cutting an island in half, man. I can't really imagine that happening. I don't think he's cutting an island in half. That's all I'll say. I really can't tell if people are serious about Bogard or not. Is he just a meme character that people like to talk about and bring up, or do you guys actually expect Bogard to do shit? He had a line of dialogue. I think we determined that at some point. I don't remember what it was. Jake Jones, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months, man. Time for my monthly check-in once again. Reminder to listen to Stormlight Archive and reread Naruto because your takes aren't it, but you're still the GOAT. Okay, I try not to give too many takes on Naruto. It's only that I feel like when people prompt me, I might be wrong on that. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But I try not to give too many takes on Naruto because I feel like Naruto gets enough shit in general. And I feel bad for Naruto fans because I think many Naruto fans are not the happiest with how their series played out. And you gotta feel sympathy there because Naruto fans were just as attached to their series as we are as One Piece fans. So how bad would we feel if, like, we're reading the final saga and, you know, we're lucky enough that the final saga is going phenomenally. But imagine if we're reading all of this and it's just ass and we're just, like, really upset about it, you know? Imagine if all of these years of fandom and suddenly, like, our attachment to the series is just taking a nosedive because Oda's fumbling the ending. That's got to feel really, really bad. So I try not to say too much about Naruto, but I probably inadvertently say a lot anyway. Stormlight Archive, there's so much shit that I want to... I've realized I need a quick break to just enjoy. No focus on work, no focus on... Like, the missing car is kind of like actually mentally like pushing me to be like, okay, now is a good time to take a nice quick little vacation. Not in a way that will affect you guys. I'll still make sure that videos will come out and stuff on time, but I haven't had a real vacation in quite some time. I've had mini vacations. Like tomorrow I'm going to Miami, fun fact, for my friend's bachelor party because I'm a groomsman, so you get invited to bachelor parties. That'll be fun. So I'm spending the weekend in Miami, but I haven't had like a nice, 4 or 5 day long, week-long vacation in some time, which I think I just need. And maybe then I'll read a book like the Stormlight Archive or something like that, or obviously one of the books in that series. JWP, thanks for being a Pirate King member for 7 months. For everybody who's a Pirate King member, either on Patreon or on YouTube, whichever one you prefer, it has been established that the main benefit of that is one exclusive podcast where the topic is decided by you guys that is separate from the weekly Morjcast that goes all out to Yonko members. So if you're interested in that, I will keep you guys updated as to what the topic of that will be for this month. This last one that we put out for June, I covered a lot of things, including tips on how to get started on YouTube, or the biggest things I learned over the course of growing a YouTube channel. If you guys are interested, if you want to join as a Pirate King member, feel free to hit the button below, or go to Patreon, whatever you prefer. Tofi2000, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 8 months, man. Pizarro's attack is going to be cutted by Bogard himself, the GOAT. Okay, so people are serious about Bogard. Or maybe I can't tell. I don't know. All I'll say about... I think I had a quick thought about the Straw Hat matchups coming out of this that I think are pretty interesting. I kind of want to save that maybe for a video that I'll put out at some other point, but I think Zoro and Sanji's opponent... I think Zoro's opponent we can assume is Shiryu, but I think Sanji's opponent I think I got an interesting idea for. As for Bogard, I got nothing to say about it, man. There's another one with Ostinger. Thanks for being a member for 9 months. Bogard takes out Shiryu 1v1. Jesus Christ. How is Bogard? He didn't even show up in this chapter. How are you guys all talking about Bogard? What is what is this obsession? I swear Bogard's like Boba Fett, right? Shows up, does pretty much nothing. No, even Boba Fett did way more than Bogard literally hasn't done anything. This is crazy. Okay, Mamadou, let me catch up on some supers. Mamadou Musa, thank you very much. Guys, after the last video, we can officially stop listening to Morj talk about power scaling. We should have known that power wasn't his thing when he got low diff by his sandals, hashtag likes up. No, if anything, like, the last power scaling video showed to me, like, how much people, just, like, what I said at the very start of that video, which was a lot of people are just biased towards wanting Luffy to still be weaker than a lot of these characters because they're biased. And that was exactly what you saw, because there were so many comments that were based around stuff like, no, Kaido, he must have just been, like, that's the thing. That was what was crazy to me about it, which was like, so many of the comments were just based on headcanon. Because, for example, if I post an example like, look, we can prove in the manga that Onigashima was not handicapping Kaido. It's very, very easily provable. You can literally see before and after. Flames up, flames off. Zero difference. That's canon. But people are coming in saying, no, that just doesn't make sense. Onigashima must have been draining Kaido's energy. And it's not based on anything. It's literally, like, they don't have any panels. There's no evidence. People are just like, Morj, come on. Onigashima must have been draining his energy. It's like, that is what is called headcanon. That is just trying to find a reason for Kaido still being stronger than Luffy when nothing like that was ever written into the story. I did see some people say, well, Yamato said that the flames, they'll go down when Kaido goes down. That's not the same as saying the flames are draining Kaido's energy. Those are two totally different things. To bridge that gap is called headcanon. Because again, factually in the story, like, this is the crazy thing to me. You can literally point out panels and be like, look, Kaido did not have the flames up when Luffy beat him. Luffy beat him straight up. He overpowered him straight up. Also, factually, Luffy was lower health, because Kaido and Luffy both acknowledge that Luffy is closer to death. There are many, many dialogue panels establishing this. People just choose to ignore those things. They're just like, they're both saying that Luffy's closer to death, but we're gonna ignore that. The flames are off when Luffy beats him, but we're gonna ignore that. It's just, Kaido's stronger, it's just his. I'm just like, these aren't, you get what I'm saying? Like, so many, I think pretty much every pro-Kaido argument I saw was basically just not, like, just, there's nothing to point to in the manga. It's kind of just people saying, like, generalities of, he must have been this, he must have been that. Whereas I can put out, like, a 17-minute long video basically pointing hard dialogue or hard factual events and be like, this is actually what happened, this is actually what happened, this is actually what happened. And people are just like, no, we just don't like that. That's the problem with power scaling. And, like, I don't know, I feel like that's why you see so many characters like Law or Sabo get overhyped, because it's just like characters that people just have a preference that they go into certain discussions with, and just like, no, Sabo just, he has to be stronger than Marco. Based on what? Based on nothing. He hasn't done anything, but he just has to be. It's like, that's not an argument. What are you guys talking about? I don't know. I think there's like, I think the video opened my eyes up a lot to like how people power scale, which was just very, very much based on what they want to believe rather than what's put on the page. Radman, welcome to the Pirate King tier. Thank you very much. Like, it got to this point where it was like, I put in the video, hey, it's established that Kaido could not escape from Luffy, right? Luffy had his arm wrapped around him. You can go reread the chapter. Luffy had his arm wrapped around him. Kaido could not get away. He says, let go, you're not letting go. Kaido tries to hit him. Kaido uses wind attacks. Kaido uses Boro breath. Luffy doesn't let go. Okay, that's what's in the manga. There's not a single thing Oda could have done more to establish that Kaido could not escape. There's nothing more Oda could have done. And then there's still people in the comments just being like, no, but I still feel like Kaido just could have escaped. He didn't have to get hit by Bajrangan Gun. He could have just escaped. It's like, this is headcanon. This is just headcanon. This is just not liking the idea that Luffy was stronger. Luffy in Gear 5th was stronger than Kaido by the end. Just because you don't like what happened, that doesn't mean you can just headcanon an alternate reality where it's like, no, Kaido could have escaped, but he just didn't want to. It's like, bitch, then why did Oda spend half the chapter showing that Kaido could not escape? What was the point of that? What are you reading? What are you reading? Wrench Dodger 2000, thanks for being a member for 6 months. BP were too boring as final Yonko Saga villains. Yeah, I think Blackbeard Pirates are very clearly set up as basically the penultimate villains of the story, which I think is basically where they're at. Goomba Boomba, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months, man. One factor you didn't address is the magma permanently knocking him down. Also, I just checked out the dub because of the critical thing, and oh god, yeah, the dub is rough. The dub is rough. The dub is really, really, it's just, I don't know. And it's really just Luffy's voice actress. I think Zoro's got a great voice actor. I think a lot of the Straw Hats have great voice actors in the dub. It's just Luffy. And it's just like, damn. That's a shame. Magma permanently knocking him down. Yeah, maybe Kaido could have gotten up if not for the magma. I think that's like a fair thing to say because that's something that's not really elaborated on, how much the magma is affecting him. But at the very least, like, who won that final clash when they're both going all out? Like, that's just Luffy. There's no flames. There's no excuses. Luffy's at lower health. There's nothing you can really say. Kaido couldn't have dodged because it's established he couldn't. I don't know. Where are we at? Bunfagum, thanks for the 7. Henchman, what's your scaling from this chapter? Garp greater than equal Admirals, Admirals greater than equal to Garp. I personally think we kind of got to let this one play out. Because at this moment, it's kind of just... Are you talking Admirals in general? Because I think Aokiji's stronger than Green Bull. I think he's stronger than Fujitora. So, you know, I think no matter how you spin it, Garp is clearly the one that's disadvantaged here. If you're talking Prime Garp, it's a fucking wash, right? But if you're talking about Garp right now, it's clearly very close. Garp is the one that's being ambushed. Garp is the one that has currently been injured by somebody else. It's just, I think Oda's going to leave this one fairly ambiguous by the end of the day, so I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Garp's going to lose, right? We can all feel that coming. The question is, what are going to be the total circumstances? Is it going to be mainly Aokiji? Is it going to be mainly the Blackbeard Pirates who do it? Is it, what's the 50-50 split? And then I think it'll be one of those things where Oda's not going to give us a hard answer as to who would win if it was just Garp and Aokiji by themselves, but I think it will come down to just what readers personally would extrapolate would be, like, their own interpretation of the fight. I'm going to be honest, I would say right now Garp's been looking better than Aokiji just because it's Garp versus everyone, and he's been stabbed, etc. At the same time, we know Aokiji probably has things he hasn't shown yet, like Logia Awakening and things like that, whatever the fuck that is. So that's why I'm saying if I had to pick one, I'd say Garp's looked a little bit better, but let's let it play out a little bit further because I wouldn't be surprised if Aokiji ends up looking better overall. I don't know. I don't think you can say that Aokiji looks better just yet. You can either say that they're equal in your eyes so far, because Aokiji hasn't done anything that shows that he's better than Garp just yet, right? Garp's been injured. Garp threw out. Aokiji couldn't freeze him. Garp threw him down a hole. Then Garp was getting ambushed by the Blackbeard Pirates. He got injured. Then Aokiji came back. They clashed. It was an equal clash. So there's nothing you can say about Aokiji being above Garp just yet. You could argue Garp has looked better than Aokiji. I think you could definitely argue Garp's look better than Aokiji, but I think we ought to see how the fight wraps because I don't think Aokiji's shown everything up his sleeve just yet. Sheriff Fluffy, thanks for the 5. You have a habit of raising enemies with such a sad line. Yeah, that's true. This chapter was great. This chapter was really, really good. I think dramatically really good. I think just the more we're getting out of Garp's character, because he's one of those old school tragic figures, it feels very reminiscent of Whitebeard, you know what I mean? But Garp is more Luffy-esque, so I find him a more relatable character than Whitebeard, who is kind of just this really, really, larger-than-life type of personality. Nerve and V-Maker, thanks for the 5. I'm actually looking forward to Zoro versus Shiryu. Zoro's the most honorable fighter in the series, and Shiryu's is the most unhonorable and underhanded. Yeah, I think the Blackbeard Pirates versus Luffy, and this will be a video I put out later, I think that's going to be a really, really, I feel like that's going to be a really... a battle full of I don't know how to explain. I think that'll be one of the most symbolically important battles in terms of how each matchup plays out. And you can kind of go down the list, and I think that there's a lot to that. So that's a video for later. GDN, thanks for the 2. Since Admirals have 3 crowns, Akainu will have 4. I wonder would they be so bold as to put a price on the Fleet Admiral's head? Probably. That'd be insane. Like, what even happens if the Fleet Admiral gets captured? That'd be, I don't even know what to think about that. Akainu having 4 would be fitting. Oh, shit. Hope the audio's still good. Let me check this. Audio's still good. Audio's still working. Yep. Jay, thanks for the 10. I'll go ahead and start the Blackbeard Pirates slander off. Garp did a normal no-haki throw that made Shiryu cough up a lung and have his life flash before him. I know he's comparable to Old Beard, but come on. I mean, remember, it took the entire Blackbeard Pirates to kill Whitebeard when Whitebeard was at literally 1% health. When Whitebeard was actually on his deathbed. So, I just don't see... I think at the end of the day, the Blackbeard Pirates are going to... Obviously, they're going to be significant threat. I imagine them defeating the red-haired pirates, but I feel like it's going to be a very, 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 very dirty victory. And then once it's time for the Strats to fight them, you know, I think that it's going to be... Obviously, the Strats will win, but I don't feel like it's going to be... you know, like Zoro versus King, for example. That was a fight where Zoro was just outclassed in terms of strength, speed, power, and Zoro had to step it up. With Zoro versus Shiryu, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more so like Zoro's probably the stronger fighter, but it's the trickery and the shenanigans of Shiryu that really, really makes things difficult for him. Daniel Allen, thanks for the 5. Briefly, do you think Gon and Killua were being set up for a major fight in the future? Yeah, I think Gon and Killua have two of their very important endgame fights set. And this is down the line. I think Gon is set up to one day fight and defeat Hisoka, and I think Killua is set up to one day fight and defeat his brother Illumi. I think those two things are very important to happen by the end of the story. And I think that's why we follow these two duos in tandem, both sides. And secondly, do you think we're still getting a Kuma flashback? Oh, a Kuma flashback is going to be vital to the end game of the story. I think it'll really, really give us perspective on the Celestial Dragons, and I think it'll be one of the most important emotional centerpieces of this final saga. Tom, thanks for the 2. We saw Mock Trial Morj last vid representing Luffy. Exactly. I feel like I just see it all the time after every arc ends. It's like Luffy, and it's understandable because the fights are always messy, right? Luffy Doflamingo, right? Luffy Katakuri. They're messy fights. Luffy Kaido, obviously. There's a lot of stuff that happens, but I feel like people sometimes go too far, and I still at the end of the day gave the verdict that, in my opinion, I feel like Gear 5th has a higher peak than Kaido from what we saw in the fight. But I still think Kaido just takes it due to stamina, right? So I would agree that Luffy's maybe not quite there. But it's not like people act, which is just like, Kaido's here and Luffy's here. You know? That's the thing. Like, people sometimes go too far and just start going along the lines of like, no, you know what, like, Luffy really, like, he's just nowhere near that level yet. That whole fight was basically a giant fluke. It's like, no, that's not... That's not what. How are we reading the same thing? Like, Oda went out of his way to establish a lot of points in favor of Luffy over the course of that fight, and to really make that victory seem meaningful. He just had to do a lot of things to make it believable that Luffy could go from being here compared to Kaido to eventually being Kaido's level. That's why a lot of the extra factors have to be thrown in, right? Because if Luffy's right here at the start and Kaido's right here, Luffy just dies. That's why you need to let's throw in some other fighters to give some buffer. You know, let's give Luffy some breaks. Okay, Luffy gets time for his power-ups and stuff like that. And then by the end, it's kind of a level playing field because Luffy's also gotten injured a bunch by then too, etc. I don't need to go through the whole video again. Tala, thanks for the 279. No Blackbeard Pirate feels Zoro and Sanji level. Also Koby ass. Yeah, Shiryu was the one that we were all kind of counting on, weren't we? Shiryu was kind of the one that we had our hopes pinned on. And what Shiryu did this chapter was basically like the most generic thing you could imagine him doing with his ability, and it still wasn't even that impressive. It was just like, Shiryu's like, when we learn he has an invisibility fruit, we're just like, okay, so that could be useful if a character isn't using observation haki and Shiryu can do a sneak attack. Not exactly what we're hoping for from Zoro's final or one of his final opponents, but, you know, maybe we can take it. But then it's just like, okay, so he does that against Garp, doesn't even take out Garp like that, right? So it's just a flesh wound. It's just an injury, it's clearly Aokiji versus Garp is the heavyweight showdown, and Shiryu's just this annoying bystander that's just getting his hits in. And then even after they're getting his hit in, Shiryu still gets fucked up. It's insane. Like, casually. Like, Garp doesn't put that much effort into it, and Shiryu's all bleeding and shit. I remember some people were trying to argue that Shiryu is stronger than Aokiji, based off of a fucking, like, cover spread or whatever. Shiryu above Aokiji? What the fuck? That's saying Shiryu's stronger than fucking Akainu. Goomba Boomba, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months. Oh, wait, no, we covered this. We covered you. Still appreciate it, but it's I'm a Pirate's turn. I'm a Pirate, thanks for being a member, a Yonko tier member for 3 months. Has your opinion on Jinbe changed? I remember you disliking him, but you ranked him S tier in the Reverie, or was it just the Indian agenda? I ranked him S tier as a joke. I don't think Jinbe is S tier among the Straw Hats, but I don't have him as low as I did before. I definitely don't think that Jinbe is nearly as interesting a character as most of the other Straw Hats. I think, Jinbe, who he is very solid. I think I prefer him outside of the Straw Hats as a character. I think I always found him to be a somewhat boring character because, yes, he's very honorable, blah, 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 blah. But I just don't feel like there's much more to his personality than that. I think it doesn't help that the flashbacks in Fishman Island were not Jinbe-centric. He was rather just a bystander who experienced the history of those flashbacks, which was important to shaping his perspective and worldview. But ultimately, I don't find Jinbe... his story, I don't find it nearly as compelling as most of the other Straw Hat stories, and I don't find his personality as interesting as most other Straw Hats, simply because I just think that there's not as much. I feel like he's more of a cardboard cutout type personality in general, like a generically good figure, rather than someone particularly interesting. Like I find, like a Frankie or a Robin or even a Brook. But at the same time, I've come around on Jinbe in many ways, and then I'm like, okay, it's fine that the crew gets a character like that, and, I can appreciate him for the good traits that he has to a degree, even if I don't find it that interesting. So, I mean, overall, I'd put Jinbe as, like, I wouldn't rate him low. I wouldn't put him S tier, because I just don't think that there's that much to him. But I wouldn't rate him low. Like, I have him above Brook and stuff, personally, even if I find Brook more interesting, I guess. And I don't dislike that he's on the crew either at this point. My thing with the Straw crew is that I feel like in general it feels like there's just too large of a cast to be moving around as much for any one of them to get as much focus as they deserve, like they used to get regularly. So it's more of a broader issue I have with the Straw Hats, which is just that there's too many of them, I feel, at this point. But I'm no longer at a point where I'm like, well, we should remove this guy or this guy or this guy. It's kind of just like, we have what we have. It's no one's... It's one of those things where it's like, it's no one's fault. It's none of your faults. I like all of you. There's too many of you, but I'm not going to pick out and be like, okay, we should get rid of you and you and you, if that makes sense. I'm just like, as a whole, I feel like we hit a point of diminishing returns with this number of crewmates, but I don't know who to chop. I'm not advocating chopping anyone off. Daniel Allen, thanks for the 2. Is Garp about to have another huge showing? I mean, isn't he already? How much more do you want? He's doing so... Garp right now is he's basically taking on the entire Yonko crew by himself. Like, it's yeah, they're missing a few characters, but it's the majority of them. And I tweeted recently, like, the Blackbeard Pirates, they kind of get fodderized all the time whenever we see them. And people kind of misinterpreted that, or people kind of assumed that I was talking about just this chapter. No, it's not just this chapter. Every time we've seen them in the New World so far, Boa Hancock, right, took care of 2 of them easily. And you're like, okay, well, that's Boa Hancock. Her ability's kind of broken. Cool. Aokiji in the bar took out... How many people did Aokiji take out in the bar? How many people did Aokiji take out in the bar? Does anyone remember what chapter this was? I feel like it's chapter 1000... say like 81, 82 or something like that. Aokiji really fucked up the entire... Okay, in the bar, Aokiji fucked up pretty much half the crew, right? San Juan Wolf, is that Vasco shot, Doc Q, then you got another chapter, Boa Hancock just taking out Vasco shot and Katarina Devon easily. You've got Blackbeard and Law versus the Heart Pirates, and let's be honest, like, even though Van Auger, Burgess, and Doc Q were there, they really had no impact on the battle. You know what I mean? And now Garp is basically taking out the entire crew, including Shiryu. So it's just like, they haven't been good. Manga Q 3000 says Geico saves you 15% or more on car insurance. Yeah, that's nice. I'm gonna need a fat check from them soon. Uchek, thanks for the 5. How big of a hole do you think current Luffy could punch into a battleship with no Haki or fruit? That's just something I'm surprised that Oda even started. It's been so long since we've looked at characters without Haki or devil fruits, because I've just gotten so used to just intrinsically tying together any physical force feats with Haki that I have absolutely no fucking idea how you even scale characters without Haki anymore. I don't even know how much it matters. How big of a hole do I think current Luffy could punch into a battleship with no Haki or fruit? I don't know. I just don't think it matters that much at this point. Because, put it this way. The moment that it was revealed that the key to... Okay, you remember back in chapter 530-something, or 430-something, right? Where Shanks and Whitebeard split the sky for the first time. And it was just like, holy shit, how strong are they to do that? At that point in time, we didn't really know too much about Haki. We'd heard the word, but we didn't really know anything about it. So, they split the sky. To us, it's just a product of their physical strength, right? It felt like, how much physically stronger does Luffy need to be able to do something like that? That's insane. The moment we find out in chapter 1000 whatever that things like splitting the sky, right, those huge displays of force, those are actually pretty much 100% a product of Conqueror's Haki, right? The moment Luffy got Advanced Conqueror's Haki, he was able to basically do that, right? It had nothing to do with his muscular strength or anything, right? It was just, I can use Advanced Conqueror's Haki like that, therefore I can split the sky. The moment we realized that, I basically was just like, okay, physical strength matters very, very, very little at this point in the story, right? Because this huge jump from Luffy at the start of Onigashima to sky splitting, which we thought was way, at the start of Onigashima, you would never have thought that Luffy would be capable of that. The last thing we saw him doing was punching up on some steel while he's training in Udon, or breaking a tree. But the moment you get Advanced Conqueror's Haki, you can split the sky. So that's kind of... Haki's just so much overwhelmingly more important than physical strength at this point that I just don't know if it even matters, the discussion of what Luffy could do to a battleship without Haki. Andrew McCarthy says, 1,000-Year Blood War is Bleach's last arc, my first time reading it. Yeah, the last time it was just sorry, you I think you typed it differently the last time, so I just wasn't sure if that's what you're referring to. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a 1,000-Year Blood War, the ending stretch of it is so ridiculously, hilariously terrible that it was a giant meme in the, general manga community the entire time it was coming out. It was just a joke. Everybody was tuning in every week to see what new garbage Bleach was putting out, including Bleach fans. Since the anime came out, Bleach has gotten this new sort of PR spin, which is that 1,000-Year Blood War, you know what, one of the best arcs of all time. It's like, no. This is an heavy anime paintbrush coating over it, right? And 2, it hasn't gotten to the bad stuff yet. Let it get to the bad stuff. Let it get to the really ridiculously dumb, stupid-ass Bleach stuff, which it's about to get to. And then maybe people's opinions will change. At the same time, I'm probably going to watch 1,000-Year Blood War because... it'll be fun to watch, but it was definitely a funny read while it was coming out. G4162, thanks. Old Garp being on par with Kuzan even after stabbed is not something I expected. I thought Kuzan would slaughter. Garp stronger than we thought. No, my thing is that it's not okay. Garp was stronger than I thought personally, just because I thought that Garp would give Akainu or Aokiji a high difficulty fight for sure. But I didn't think that Oda would go to this degree where it's like, no, we need to handicap Garp to basically make this still a fair fight. Because I'm like, Garp's fucking retired, 80 years old. This is insane. My bigger thing is that I think in general, readers for a long time have underestimated the level of Roger, Whitebeard, and Garp. I think that in general, that's just been heavily, heavily underestimated. I saw some people trying to argue, there was a period of time in Wano that people were even like, Kaido's probably stronger. Maybe Kaido's stronger than Prime Whitebeard or Roger and stuff like that, or at least on their level. It's like, no, what the fuck? That's Roger. This entire story has been about Pirate King, It's this mythical, ridiculous status. Do you know how fucking strong you need to become to conquer the entire ocean? Like, to be sitting at the top of the food chain, right? That has been established as just this otherworldly feat, right? And Whitebeard at 1,000,000 years old was still being called the strongest because he was the only dude to ever even go toe-to-toe with the last Pirate King. The only guy to ever match the last Pirate King. So when Whitebeard is sitting there on, like, you know, like hospital equipment and stuff like that in the fucking twilight years of his life, basically half a breath away from death, and people are still like, yeah, but he's number one even at 1,000,000 years old, that just tells you that, yeah, the prime level of these guys is very different from the group of characters we have now. And that's the level that Luffy eventually has to reach. You know, how high will Luffy's ceiling go? That was kind of the point of that. I mean, Kaido himself, at the end of the Wano battle, was talking about how, like, Roger, that's a different level of Haki, man. We ain't seen nothing like that. Roger brought the entire pirate world to heel with Haki alone. That's a different level than we're seeing for today. That's basically the idea. Tofi 2000, thanks for the 20. Could you make a video about Bogard's final matchup? With this much demand? Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. People keep talking about Bogard cutting Pizarro, but I genuinely think this is a great opportunity to give Tashigi some shine. Tashigi is not cutting Pizarro. There's no way that happens. Princess Taco, thanks for the 2. Glad the chapter landed on your birthday. Yeah, what a coincidence, considering every day is my birthday. That's insane. Satira Salad, thanks for the 5. 1 out of 9? Oh my god, I'm not reading all this. What is this? Hey, Morj, story time. You'll never guess what happened. A few weeks ago, oh no, this is mean. I'm not reading this. Hawkins, thanks for the 5. Do you, like, this is very... Do you have any idea how much this hurts me right now? Hawkins, thanks for the 5. Do you think this will be Koby's moment to step up and to show us how strong he really is? And if not now, then when? Koby's moment to step up and show us how strong he really is. I just don't think... I just never really understood why people felt like Koby had to be really strong. Because I just don't think that's ever been his... I think I want to make a Koby video after all this. I want to see what he does next chapter and then I make a Koby video. But I just don't get why people really want Koby to be super strong right now. And he's not even a vice admiral. Like, what do people want out of him? He's not even a vice admiral, man. Like, he's not there yet. If Oda wanted to make him strong, he would have made him a vice admiral, but he's not. He's just a captain or a rear admiral or some shit like that. Like, I imagine Koby's about pre-time skip Luffy level, which means that he's going to be about as useful as pre-time skip Luffy was at Marineford, which is basically not very. Although pre-time skip Luffy, he did try. I think I would like to see Koby try. That's the thing. I don't want to see him just standing around and yelling, basically. So hopefully next chapter he does something, but I don't expect him to beat any of the Blackbeard Pirates. If he does and he turns out to be stronger than you would expect, that's great. But you know, it's like, I think it's been established that vice admirals are the ones who have armament, Haki and stuff, vice admiral and up. So I'm just like, why are people pinning this stuff on Koby? You know, I think isn't it insane that Koby's already in let's put things in perspective. 2 years ago, Koby was probably the weakest character in the entire story. Right? Or close to, competing for the weakest character in the entire story. He was literally a cabin boy on Alvida's ship. You know? Oh, guys, I forgot about the stream likes. Let's get the stream likes to 200. Let's get the stream likes to 200. Let's get the stream likes up to 200. That's number 1. We got to do that. But yeah, Koby was like, he was a cabin boy on Alvida's ship. You know? Like, what? I feel like it's demanding quite a bit to take like a completely normal character, physically weaker than normal, and be like, in 2 years you need to be what? Yonko commander level or something like that? That's insane. Like Luffy, who pre-time skip was one of the strongest pirates in the entire first half of the Grand Line, it took him 2 years just to get to, like, from there, you know, one of the world's strongest pirates as is, at least in the first half of the Grand Line. Took him 2 years just to get to a level where he could compete with some of the Yonko's commanders, you know? What do people want from Koby? I don't know. I think it's insane that, to me, if Koby caught up over 2 years from basically 0 or -1 to just pre-time skip Luffy level, that's fucking insane. That's superhuman. That's some of the fastest growth rate ever. That's crazy. Alright, where are we at? Malik, thanks for the 5. What if Zoro fights Mihawk before Shiryu, but Oda makes them even by Shiryu stabbing Zoro in the back to start the fight? I would fucking hate that. No, Zoro needs to beat Mihawk straight up. And I think Zoro would hate that too. JP, thanks for the 10. I liked Aokiji's line about Garp raising enemies. It is a good line. I definitely agree. Somebody else mentioned that earlier. His style of training trains your raw willpower, and he tends to value freedom. No wonder his pupils all became rebels of the world. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. His training style does value freedom. I feel like the way he trained Koby and Helmet Poe was more hands-on though, and more regimented. So I feel like that might have been a younger Garp, the way he was training Aokiji versus how he trains characters today. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. I'm not sure if Luffy's stamina will be an issue in this rematch against Kaido because he forced himself into Gear 5 again despite running out of stamina. See, that's where we get into, like, that's entirely possible, but that's where we get into, in my opinion, headcanon. So I think it's the same, like, this is what I'm talking about where I'm saying, like, there's so much bias that I saw in favor of Kaido because everything was about assumptions, because you could, and I refrain from, but you could throw in a lot of assumptions about Luffy, right? I could have included a whole section making the argument that, hey, Luffy is probably going to do even better with Gear 5th today, because when Luffy did his first fight against Kaido, right, that was the first time he ever was able to do Gear 5th, period, right? That was the first time he even discovered that he could do it. This was like a baby suddenly getting behind, like, a bicycle for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, he had no idea he could do any of this. He's learning as he goes. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, right? So I could have made the argument that, hey, if Kaido had that much trouble against Gear 5th Luffy, when Gear 5th Luffy was literally doing his, like, experimental round, essentially, and Luffy himself didn't know what the fuck was going on, then wouldn't Luffy today likely be much more, like, actually knowing that he can use Gear 5th and going into it with an idea of what he can do with it? Wouldn't Luffy today be much more competent, or at least more competent with Gear 5th than he was in the Kaido fight? I could have made that argument, but I didn't, because that's headcanon, right? You could say it's a fair assumption to make, but it's not based on anything in the story. We actually need to see Luffy do new things with Gear 5th before we can just come out and claim that Luffy could have done that. On the other hand, with, like, and that's the thing, like, throughout the comments, I saw almost nothing in terms of, like, random assumptions about, like, well, Luffy could do this or Luffy could do that. Whereas with Kaido, I saw a million people just making assumptions that are like, well, Kaido, I'm sure if he had done this, this, and this, then he would have been able to escape Luffy while he was holding him for the Bajirang gun. It's like, that's not based on anything. That's not based, like, what we got was Oda giving you, like, 3 pages establishing Kaido can't get away, and then Luffy pulling out Bajirang gun. That's what we're given. You need to go off of that. You can't just make up some shit because you want Kaido to win. Anyway, that's just my take on it, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't know. I just think that the amount of bias that there is against Luffy in terms of any of these debates is, it's like, it's always very, very, very high, and it's always very, very unsubstantiated, and tends to contradict what we actually see. Where are we at? Ostinger says, could Gear 5th Luffy take out Big Mom? Oh, fuck yeah. Big Mom, for sure. Kaido's a different beast, but Big Mom, no question. Mamadou Musa, thank you very much. Jesus Morj, was a joke about getting low diff by your sandals. Didn't know I was going to get a passionate rant. It was more so in response to all of the bad arguments I then saw regarding, like, throughout the comments of Luffy versus Kaido. So it wasn't directed at you. It's just more just like, it's kind of crazy when you put out a video that lays out literally what happened beat by beat throughout the fight, and then you still have people saying, yeah, but I feel like, yeah, but I think, yeah, but I assume that this, and it's just like, you need to post fucking panels or clear lines of dialogue that prove what you're thinking. Otherwise, this is just bias in favor of the character you want. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. Also, I would add this to your argument for Flame Clouds not weakening Kaido. Kaido literally said, I'll not make myself weaker in chapter 1037. It's a good point. It's a good point. Afterglow, thanks for the 5. Bogard's on the ship. First panel showing Kujaku on the right. Although I would say to that, right, in the interest of being fair, that you could interpret that as like, I'm not going to make myself weaker than I have to, but if the flame clouds he viewed as something as a necessity that he just had to do to move Onigashima, then maybe that's a totally different discussion, right? You could interpret that line as like, well, I'm not going to purposely handicap myself, but if the flame clouds are moving Onigashima, which is never actually established, but if you want to run with that, then saying I'll not make myself weaker might not refer to that necessarily, because that could just be something that Kaido is having to do out of just like sticking to his plan rather than deliberately wanting to handicap himself. You get what I'm saying? Afterglow, thanks. Bogard's on the ship. First panel showing Kujaku on the right. Also, he's Garp's right-hand man, so I expect something, but it's definitely a meme too. Garp's right-hand man, but Garp hasn't exactly brought the A-team, has he? Like, what does Garp's right-hand man mean? Garp's not a Yonko. He's not running around with a Yonko crew. Him having a right-hand man doesn't mean that much, I don't think. Like, put it this way. We kind of saw what the Marines are made out of during the Marineford War. That's the point. There's not exactly, like, first mate level Marines running around, you know? That's why the Whitebeard Pirates, you know, we kind of saw how it lines up. The Vice Admirals go up against the lower Whitebeard commanders. That was established. And then the top Whitebeard commanders went up against the Admirals. The Admirals are obviously stronger, but these are the guys that are kind of getting matched up, right? You don't have Bogard being thrown in there against Marco or some shit. Like, if Bogard could like fight Shiryu or something like that, then why wouldn't they just throw him at Vista or Marco or Jozu, you know? JWP, thanks for the 2. Luffy beats Big Mom without Gear 5th. Ooh, that's a spicy take. I'm not gonna, people will get, that's opening up a whole can of worms. Jay, thanks for the 5. Surely Kuzan will have Logia Awakening. Oda will surely make sure to give Admirals Logia Awakening, right? Surely. Yeah, I think we should see. I mean, that's what I said about Kaido's Awakening, but that didn't happen, so I don't know, actually. But just because Logia Awakening has been mentioned this arc already, I wouldn't be surprised if Aokiji's our first instance of it. Caleb Brown, thanks for the 2. Do you think Koby gets a Haki Bloom if Garp loses? Also, not to mention that Aokiji's clearly outclassed by Garp in terms of Haki. I don't see Aokiji doing any Galaxy Impact shit. Let's get the stream likes to 300 real quick. Let's get the stream likes to 300. Caleb Brown, thanks for the 2. Do you think Koby gets a Haki Bloom if Garp loses? I think that'd be great. I think it would be great if we could get an actual power-up moment for Koby, but I don't need to see Koby be very strong by the end of the story, personally. I just don't think that's his role. I would love to see Koby as an admiral in the epilogue, but his growth rate as is has been fucking insane. People asking for more than this, I just don't even know what to say. Like, the fact that, again, Koby went from nothing, literally a normal fucking child, to pre-time skip Luffy level in 2 years. That's crazy. That's so fucking fast, right? Like, you know how long it took pre-time skip Luffy to get pre-time skip Luffy level? His entire time since he started training as a child, through all of his adventures and trials and tribulations in the Grand Line. You know? Like, for Koby to get there that fast in 2 years is nuts. You could say he's been getting trained and stuff, but at the same time you could argue, well, Luffy's been training as a child through the time he set out, and the best training is experience, and Luffy just went through the Grand Line fighting the strongest characters. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, Koby's growth rate was already unreasonably fast. I just don't get why people want him to be something that makes no sense at this point in the story. Justin Holland, thanks for the 5. Love your last analysis video. I appreciate it. In case you didn't see my Pirate King post, maybe Garp is trying to train someone who can change the world government from the inside. Maybe. I don't know if I saw that as under the Pirate King thing. Garp trying to change someone who can train someone who can change the government from the inside. I like that idea, but I'm also wondering why Garp would never try to do that himself, because if anybody has the pull to be able to do something like that, it would be him as the hero of the Marines. But it would parallel Roger in a sense, in that maybe Roger was like, well, I can't change the world so, like, on my own time, but my goal will basically be to leave a legacy for somebody to come along who can change the world in my stead. So I like that idea. Keenan, thanks for the 5. I'm scared for my guy Garp, but he himself looks relatively unbothered in the last panel. Lol, it's kind of raw, actually. This has been an insane set of, like, this whole raid has been an insane set of chapters by Garp. right? There's nothing negative you can say about Garp over the course of this. Great character stuff, insane feats that we would never have expected, and all of this is way past his prime, right? And some nice backstory, lore, motivational stuff as well. Ibster, thank you. Love your rant and analysis. Big love from Scotland. I feel like Scottish people like rants. I might be wrong about that, but I don't know. Fighting sleep to watch this for real, for real. Thanks, appreciate that. Carson Cock, thanks for the 5. In the rematch, has Kaido seen Gear 5th, or is he fighting it, or is he seeing it for the first time? In the real fight, he seemed shocked by all the Gear 5th ability, while Luffy knew Kaido's. That's a really good point, though. That is a really good point. In the rematch, do we know knowledge on, knowledge off? Well, that's its own different discussion then. Let's say knowledge off. Knowledge off favors Luffy. Knowledge on favors Kaido, probably, right? Sheriff Laffy, thanks for the 2. Odds on Smoker / Drake / Sengoku rescuing the ship. I don't know if this is... I think I would love to see Smoker come through in some sort of a way after he's been asked for so long. But I don't know if anyone's coming to win this fight for them. I think a getaway makes sense. I also think Sengoku would be overkill. I think if Sengoku shows up here, there's a chance that the Marines just wrap this up, honestly, because Sengoku would probably come with at least a Vice Admiral or something like that, right? If Garp is doing this to the entire Blackbeard Pirates crew, then I don't think they can take 2 Garps, basically. And Sengoku's got to be at least close to Garp, in my opinion. Daniel Allen, thanks for the 2. I meant, do you think Gon and Killua fight each other? I don't think the author is going to do that, because I think that one of the things the author likes to play with is, like, who's stronger between Gon and Killua, with Killua being the more, like, tends to be the sharper, more polished character, tends to be a little bit better at more things, etc., in terms of as a fighter. Just a little bit ahead in most categories, but then Gon having more of that raw potential and, like, just straight up force or power, and, like, what he can do is what's so terrifying in theory. So I think the author likes playing with that rather than ever actually having them fight it out. It kind of defeats the fun of it, I think, you know? Hans Ding, thanks for the 2. Blackbeard Pirates is not a factor. Aokiji one-shot them. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we can give Garp so many props, but then at the same time, we also saw Aokiji low diff most of the Blackbeard, or a good number of the Blackbeard Pirates, while chilling at a bar as well. So I think the general gist we're getting here is that these guys don't stack up to Admiral level characters. The FPS King Gaming, thanks for the 5. How much money for a collab stream with King of Lightning, Brago, and Parvision to play Outlast Trials? What? I don't even know what that is. Also, how is the car? Did you beat the thief to a pulp? The thief has not been found. The car has not been found. I discussed it earlier towards the very beginning of the stream. I don't want to talk about it much going forward just because it's a headache. Yeah, let's just say it's not found, and most likely I'm going to have to get a new car with insurance, etc. Kino the Far, thanks for the 10. Dear Marjorie, thanks for all you've done. Your theories show me that I need to be confident even if I'm wrong. That's funny. I admire your dedication even when you're late. How will Shanks' death affect Buggy? That's actually a fun point. How will Shanks' death affect Buggy? How will Shanks' death affect Buggy? How will Shanks' death affect Buggy? I think that's interesting. I think that's a fun thing to bring up, actually. How will Shanks' death affect Buggy? I think it'll actually be an important scene, because we saw that Buggy had a strong personal connection to Shanks before they parted ways, and Buggy actually bet on Shanks to be Pirate King. So, I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool to see. I didn't really think about that. DuckDuck20, thanks for the 2. Rocks washes everyone. I don't know about everyone. I mean, didn't Roger beat him? I mean, Roger and Garp, but Rocks had a lot of people on his side too, so I don't know. JP, thanks for the 50. Holy shit, thank you very much, man. Thank you, appreciate it. What do you have to say? 1,000-Year Blood War was rushed by the author. Yes, because he was forced to do that. Yes, I agree. That whole ending wasn't his ideal vision. That's why people have hype for the anime, because the extra scenes have given people hope the final stretch will be rewritten in the way the author wanted. I would love to see that. I would definitely love to see that. However, what I disliked about it wasn't just the final stretch, and I think a lot of the jokes and such about it were coming up much earlier than that final stretch of, I think I know what you're talking about. There was a point that was revealed that there's only 10 chapters left to go. So Kubo was forced to basically wrap it in a crazy short amount of time, in a time frame that made basically no sense. That being said, a lot of the reasons that Thousand Year Blood War gets made fun of is because I think that's kind of where a lot of the abilities and fights, etc., became very memeable, since it really went down this rabbit hole of like, villain has this very, very, very specific anime ability, and the hero has trained an ability that very, very perfectly and conveniently specifically counters that, and it kind of just took the edgy anime battle style of like, haha, you didn't know this secret about me, but did you know that this is my true ability, even though it makes no sense, and then that is not even the true form of this ability, etc. And then the hero's going, well, were you under the impression that this, but you think that that's that, but it's actually this other thing, and that's why this entire time I've been training this thing. Oh, you think that's the limit of what it can do? Surprise, turn it upside down. That's what my real ability is. And then one of them bullshits basically enough till they win. It's just that's how most of the fights went, and it just became so absurd that you kind of had to just, not even just suspension of disbelief, just suspension of any sort of like care for quality control in writing or whatever, I guess. It just got kind of absurd. And I don't want to spoil anything. I'm sure watching the anime will give me a refresher on a lot of these points, but I can think of a few very, very clear examples of just stupid ass shit like that. But I think it was all capped off by the conclusion being forced to be extremely, extremely rushed. At least that's what was the belief at that point in time, that the author had been giving 10 chapters. I heard later on that was just a rumor, but then at the same time I've heard other things that confirm it, so I don't know. RPG 901, thanks for the 5. Love the new video on Luffy versus Kaido, and I found your car. I'm soloing Pin Morj for it. Alright, that's good to know. One second. Ryochia, thanks for the 2. Nah, man, Koby was always stronger than Spandam. I don't think Romance Dawn Koby was stronger than Spandam. Spandam is only, I think the average soldier had a Dairaki of 10 and Spandam had a Dairaki of 9. I feel like Koby would have a Dairaki of like 1 at the start. Angel Rees, thanks for the 10. What if Koby actually dies and now Garp has a dead Marine grandson? No, that'd be fucking insane. I also think Garp might be sadder if Koby died. I don't know. Than Ace. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. It's a Dressrosa Zoro level feat. That's not too much to ask in my opinion. The girl deserves at least 1 W in the series. Yeah, but Dressrosa level Zoro, that's pretty high. Like, let's not get that wrong. Like Pika scales at least. Like, cutting the mountain was a really, really big deal. I don't think people realize, but if you go back, it took characters really baffled, just because Zoro ended up making it look easy. A lot of characters just didn't have an answer for Pika at that point in time. When Zoro cut Pika, the Wano samurai, like Kinemon, Kanjuro, etc., they were freaking out about it, and they were like, holy shit, how are you able to do that? Like, even the Wano samurai were not cutting mountains, you know what I mean? So for Tashigi to suddenly be able to do that, that's crazy, because Tashigi, like, you gotta go, like Virgo and Pika and those seats and stuff, you go several steps down, like, several steps down, and then you get to Tashigi, you know what I'm talking about? Also, it's not even a Dressrosa Zoro level feat, because Pizarro is kind of a stepped up version of Pika. You know, Pika was the size of a pretty big plateau on Dressrosa, but Pizarro is Dressrosa in theory. You know what I mean? Like, Pizarro is an island. It's very different than Pika. Should be significantly larger than Pika. Abyssal Leviathan, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard beat Law, who had 3 billion. Shanks beat Kid, who had 3 billion. Kizaru has 3 billion and is heading to Egghead. It's Yonko's hunting 3 billion character season. I just can't. I read the 3 billion and I'm just like, it's so fraudulent. Their 3 billion berry bounties are so fraudulent, but I like the pattern, yeah. John Sink, thanks for the 5. Whose power do you think Blackbeard will steal, and we will see the method? I really don't know, because I do believe that Blackbeard will get a final zone, but I thought at one point it might be a dragon. That's kind of out the window now. I thought later on it might be Marco, but then Oda would have had him just steal it during their fight. So at this point, I'm kind of stumped. No, I actually have one very good theory. No, not one very good. One very, very interesting theory about whose power Blackbeard could steal, but I'm not going to share that here. I might have hinted about it at on a previous stream, but I'm not going to share it here. It's a pretty interesting one in my opinion, but I need to put a lot more things together personally. Let's get the stream likes to 400 real quick. Let's get it to 400. Deshaun McKenzie, thanks for the 5. At the Reverie you said you all see Jinbe as Indian. I always saw black. Do all people of color see themselves in non-human characters? Do we all think Piccolo is us? That's very funny. Let me clarify that. No, if I'm being 100% honest, I think me and pretty much everyone reading the Fishman Island arc views Fishman as basically like the analogy to black people experiencing slavery, right? Most people, I assume, and especially a lot of the parallels, right? You could even draw parallels between MLK and Malcolm X, between the storylines of Otohime, Fisher Tiger. You can. I've seen lots of people do that. I don't think it's my place necessarily to say how accurate, inaccurate, blah blah blah. However, I think that's why most people would make that assumption, right? However, Oda then comes out with an SBS which explains what nationality various Straw Hats would be, all the Straw Hats would be in the real world, right? Like Luffy Brazil, Zoro Japan, etc., etc. And what's funny is that Jinbe, I think it's because he already had Usopp as Africa, right? He said Jinbe would be Indian, which was, I think it threw everybody for a loop. It threw me for a loop because I'm just like, no, that doesn't... Like, yeah, India went through quite a bit with the Britishers, etc., right? Like, it's not nearly the same thing, though. It's not even close to the same thing. I mean, it's not close to the same thing, right? There's varying degrees of oppression. We were oppressed, but it's just far milder, I suppose, as far as oppression goes, right? Far milder. And it's just like, we definitely, I definitely was not reading Fishman Island thinking, yeah, these guys are fucking Indian. I never thought of Jinbe as Indian. I just thought it was really funny when after, like, years of the community basically, like, holding the Fishman Island story and, like, Jinbe, etc. as, like, basically black representation in the series, then Oda comes out and he's just like, well, Jinbe's actually Indian. I find that fucking hilarious because I'm like, cool, we get some Indian representation. And it's just, like... and it's fun to bring that up because it's canon, and I know a lot of other people, like people that I'm friends with, like the fact that you know the Fishman and Jinbe, on paper they really should represent black people. I just find it funny to bring up that, well, technically it's Indian, even though it makes no fucking sense at all. You know what I mean? So it's just a fun thing. It's not like I don't, if I'm being honest, I don't legitimately see Jinbe as like Indian representation in the story. It's just funny to bring up. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 5. What will be the next Luffy power up with like 3 major villains? Zoro Sanji can go for advanced Haki and Black Blade. For Luffy, it will be something unique. I personally think that like there's levels to advanced Conqueror's Haki that still have to be discovered, just because that's like kind of what Kaido was saying towards the end of his fight with Luffy, that you still need to develop your Haki further. I feel like Conqueror's Haki is the big one that really matters, and Luffy's trying to become Pirate King, so that's the one that's going to matter. You know, the disposition of the king is the one that's going to matter most at the final step of his journey to becoming king. Not to mention, we're seeing characters like Shanks and Garp break out displays of Conqueror's Haki that clearly surpass what Luffy can do so far. So I think that's what's going to be most important for Luffy going down the line in the future. Okay. Samuel Victor, thanks. Do you think Rokogyu killed the remaining Beast Pirates? Oh, shit. No, I don't think so. I think it'll just be... one of those things where, like, we just don't find out what happened to them. Like, you know, what happened to Doflamingo's crew? I don't know. Probably Impel Down or some shit. Stone Magnet 1. Morj, let's not forget Mori is there. Do you think we see return of Shadows as guard? Maybe Nightmare Koby. Oh, shit. That'd be cool. I would like Moria to do something effective, but I don't think... I'm not, like, expecting a bunch out of Moria right here. But it's interesting that Oda brought him back into the story, which means maybe we should be expecting him to make a difference here. Carson Cock, thanks for the 10. For the Boa / Blackbeard / Rain interaction, I viewed it as Blackbeard was more scared of Boa's fruit than Rayleigh, and viewed him as a trustworthy middleman to have Boa unstone his men, and he would let Boa go. Am I tripping? I read the scene as basically Blackbeard was perfectly fine letting his crew die. Not perfectly fine, but he basically had accepted that, hey, if my crew's got to go, then they've got to go. That was the dialogue that he gave us, so that's what I take him at face value there. And then Blackbeard did seem intimidated by Rayleigh, so I take that into account. And then finally, Rayleigh's account of it was basically Rayleigh's reputation was enough to kind of scare off not scare off Blackbeard, but Rayleigh's reputation was enough to kind of make Blackbeard feel like this was not the right conflict to be messing around with. And so I think overall, because Blackbeard could just kill Boa Hancock, he made it clear that he didn't care for his crewmates at that point. So that's how I view that situation. JP, thanks for the 10. All of Luffy's power-ups were Luffy unlocking through effort or figuring things out. Gear 5th felt like he was rewarded for being killed. Feels like people discount he got a free revive against Kaido. Yeah, I think that's... I've always talked about this with Gear 5th, which is just like... I like the form a lot. I don't enjoy the lead-up to getting it. Just because I prefer there to just... Like, you can call it generic, I suppose, but I also think there's a reason that stories roll with this, which is like, especially shonen, which is like, you know, something happens, there's a sort of dramatic emotional trigger that leads to a character moment for the protagonist, and then that allows them to take some sort of a step towards a new ability. Call me old-fashioned, I prefer that, right? I prefer that method of getting a new power-up. Luffy's method of getting a power-up is something I'd literally never seen before in a shonen protagonist, which is like, you just get knocked out, and then they just wake up with a new power-up. So I really didn't like how it happened, but I like the form so much that I don't care that much. Put it this way, if it was anything else, then I would have, like, let's say it was Zoro got knocked out, and then he just woke up with Advanced Conqueror's Haki, I'd kind of be like, what the fuck happened here? I like the fact that Zoro went through all of his flashbacks, realizations, etc. before, and like took a character step in a way before unlocking that ability, right? I would have liked to have seen that more fleshed out for Luffy when he got Advanced Conqueror's Haki. But with Gear 5th, I kind of just give it a pass mentally because it's Devil Fruit Awakening. But I understand a lot of people dislike how Luffy got Gear 5th. I think it's just people like the ability, so we don't really care as much. And it's meant to be a more zany, goofy ability. So because it's a comical ability, I think it's harder to write something very much like a dramatic, emotional trigger to then lead up to, like, to then trigger him into transforming into something that's just very funny and silly. So I think Oda kind of had to do it that way, if that makes sense. It's just, yeah, I think just by nature of what the transformation is, it's harder to do something really dramatic, like, character-wise. So Oda kind of had to just do, like, a on-off switch method for it, if that makes sense. So it makes sense to me how he got it. I don't love how he got it, but I like the form, and it fits with just how you would probably have to write a power-up for that form. So it's like, whatever. And it's Awakening. You could kind of roll with that. Like, he died, awoke. I don't know. Isaac St. Charles, thanks. Smoker's so useless, can't believe you rate him. I hope he does something soon, man. Hope he does something soon. Michael Goodwin, thanks for the 10. Morj, love your content. Appreciate it. What do you think the chapter did for Shiryu stocks? Also, Curry's underrated in all-time rankings. I I'm not gonna like. Okay, Shiryu stocks real quick. I don't think Shiryu stocks could be lower, because this is like. It's like you got the entire crew is currently jumping Garp, who is 1,000,000 years old, way past his prime. The entire crew is jumping Garp. Shiryu gets in a sneak attack because Garp is distracted trying to save Koby. So it's not even like Shiryu got the sneak attack on Garp like while Garp is in the middle. Like Garp is already compromising himself by like trying to save Koby. So Shiryu gets one sneak attack in, which so far seems like all he can do, and it injures Garp, but not even to the point that Garp can't fight anymore. It's just like Shiryu shot his shot, and then Garp beats him up anyway, spends one panel of effort on him, and Shiryu's immediately bloodied and stuff, and then tosses Shiryu aside to basically go back to fight the real contender, which is Aokiji. It really, really makes it seem like the gap between Shiryu versus Aokiji is fairly large. Shiryu's essentially a nuisance for Garp here. And if we were to compare, it's just like, I mean, look at Marco. People don't understand. Marco is a fucking hassle. This is why I never understand when characters, people downplay Marco. It's like, Marco's a fucking hassle, straight up, for pretty much any character in the story, right? You don't need Marco doesn't need to do sneak attacks and stuff like that. You drop Marco in front of Kizaru, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. You drop Marco in front of Akainu, it's gonna be a pain in the ass, You drop Marco in front of Big Mom, she literally had to leave because she didn't have the souls to deal with him, and Marco's just too much of a pain in the ass. Shiryu, it's like, the entire squad can be jumping one guy, Shiryu can get one hit in, when the guy's 100% distracted, and then still get fucked up immediately afterwards, and then made irrelevant. Maybe Shiryu does something more next chapter, but it's hard to redeem what he just did, man. William Marshall, thanks for the 5. Oda hyping up the Admirals by comparing them to Garp is really getting me excited for Akainu versus Luffy. I really hope Akainu's gotten a power-up. It's still not confirmed whether Aokiji was using what level of Haki he was using here, but I'm not going to say he was using it Conqueror's Haki until we get something a little bit more provable. I really hope Akainu's unlocked Advanced Conqueror's Haki, otherwise I just don't see Akainu. Like, if Akainu is still basically Aokiji's level, then I find it a disappointing fight if Luffy versus Akainu is around the corner. Because right now, Aokiji's level seems to be, at best, able to go toe-to-toe with aging, injured Garp. So it's like, if one of Luffy's final fights is basically against Akainu, who's then roughly equal to aging, injured Garp, it would just feel like no, I want to see Luffy get to a point where it's like he should be passing up Prime Garp and stuff by the end of the story, right? I don't know. You say, not gonna lie, I can still see him fighting Sabo, though. If Sabo gets some power-ups or something. Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 2. Garp's ship flew into Beehive, now it'll fly Outlaw. It'd be nice to see. Garp can still throw it. He can chuck it, right? Reflexy, thank you. Why are Luffy and Nami portrayed as a duo in fictional/imaginary settings like Whole Cake, Gaimon's Island, and Skypiea? Will it happen again later on? I think that might be a little bit selective, just because a lot of One Piece locations are imaginative, I think Fishman Island's a very fictional, imaginary setting, I wouldn't say that those 3 that you mentioned are necessarily standouts in that sense. The bigger thing is that I think that Luffy, if you look at each of those places, I think Luffy and Nami is a pairing that Oda likes to go back to frequently just as a character dynamic, but Skypiea, it was because it went to a lot of the themes and ideas of that arc, which was about dreams, Nami being a very grounded person versus Luffy's dreamer mentality, and you can kind of see from Jaya through Skypiea how that dynamic basically comes to a head at the very end with Nami giving in to a lot more. Over the course of the arc, Nami opens up her mind in a lot of ways, basically. So that's important for Nami's character and the ideas of that storyline. The Gaimon thing was, I actually talk about that in several videos. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I think that one's a lot of foreshadowing for the adventure to get the One Piece itself. And Nami's crucial to, in general, guiding Luffy to One Piece, which is why I think that, like, in the arc that foreshadows a lot of treasure hunting ideas, it's Nami, Luffy, stuff like that. And Whole Cake, I think Luffy just needed some emotional counterpart to bounce off of over the course of that because that was a very dramatic arc. David Magana, thanks for the 5. Who would Kaido take out of his top 5 to put in Luffy, or just add Luffy? I like to think that he would just add Luffy, because it's like Kaido respects everyone there. But if he's taking someone out, if I had to give like a random guess, like a random ass guess, I feel like Kaido wouldn't take out Odin, because Odin was that guy that beat him, that he could never get revenge on. I don't think Kaido would take out Rox, because Rox was his captain. I don't think Odin would take out Whitebeard, because like Kaido literally his first introduction, he's talking about Whitebeard inspiring him. I don't think Kaido would take out Roger, because it's fucking Gold, like the Pirate King, the guy that whose throne Kaido's trying to take, and Kaido's literally talking up Roger, even in his fight with Luffy, saying like, you're good, but you're not as good as Roger, who brought the entire pirate world, like who beat the entire, like took over the entire pirate world with just Haki, right? So I don't think he'd take out those 4 guys. So the only person I'd really say, like, maybe he'd take out Shanks, just because we haven't heard Kaido really speak of Shanks, and Kaido probably has the least connection to Shanks in general out of those guys, you know? Not because Shanks is weaker than Odin or something. I'm just saying in terms of personal connection, maybe Kaido would take out Shanks just because the least influence on him. It's a funny question. JP, thank you for the 20. Yeah, I recall Bleach each week was a cliffhanger, flip-flopping the battles out of nowhere. Hoping adapting for anime and not weekly manga format will tone that down, though it won't change the contents of the battles themselves. Yeah, I think it also doesn't help that Bleach has very little content per chapter, so it would kind of just get a little bit absurd with a fight just being like a fight that doesn't need to be that long, playing out over like 10 chapters, and each chapter being a really short snippet that can be summed up as like, aha, you didn't know my real ability was this. Cue some bullshit ability, and the opponent being confused and taken aback, and then you swap it the next chapter, and then you do it again the next chapter, and you do it again the next chapter, and there's like 5 actual pages worth of content over a 15 or 19 page chapter. JWP, thanks for the 5. Avalo Pizarro's kinda broken as hell. Makes no sense that I think he might just fodderize the rest of the Blackbeard Pirates, Aokiji and Blackbeard. I don't think Avalo Pizarro is gonna fodderize his own crew, unless you're saying Garp might fodderize them. I don't think he's fodderizing. I don't think either of them are... I don't fully understand the question, but I don't think Avalo Pizarro's fodderizing anyone, and his own crew, and I don't think Garp's gonna come out on top here either. Reflexy, thanks for being a member for 5 months. Does 1087 debunk the Dragon son-in-law theory? Yeah, it's got it, right? Like, Dragon is Garp's son. That is established. It does, in some way, it doesn't... It allows for the continuation of the egg theory, because it continues, like, the fact that Luffy's mom has still yet to be referenced in any way, or even suggested to exist in any way, continues. We have no connections, right? Garp's not her dad. She has no dad. We don't know anything about this woman. In fact, there might not be a woman. It might just be an egg. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 2. I don't want it like Kaguya Blackbeard takes Imu's fruit. Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. I think Hidden Island even was suggesting Hidden Island or Power Vision telling me about Hidden Island's theories or something like that. But the idea of Blackbeard having, like, just a lot of fruits at the end and turning into this sort of monster. Oh, real quick, let's get the stream likes to 400. We're almost there. Clay music off. Thanks for the 5. Naruto's ending was nowhere near as bad as you make it sound. Most shonen have worse endings. Naruto versus Sasuke greater than Luffy versus Kaido. I mean, yeah, I think Naruto versus Sasuke is better than Luffy versus Kaido. Here's where okay. On Naruto's ending, maybe I make it sound really bad. I think one, I would agree that a lot of shonen have really bad endings, but I think that you would also agree that we would tend to hold Naruto to a higher standard just because, like, Naruto and One Piece, these things are Goliaths in that industry, so you can't really, because they clearly get a lot of leeway to end things on their own terms, right? You just have high expectations for them, right? No one was gonna call the Naruto Ninja War short, right? You could tell that this is it. Whereas with a lot of shonen, I think that, they're always on the verge of cancellation. When they don't always get to decide when their last arc is and stuff like that, so that's a big factor. And also, just like, you tend to you hold Naruto to a higher standard because of the story that it was building, right? The story that it was building was much better than the vast majority of other shonen of its era, and probably still today, right? I don't know which, like, if I'm comparing, like, Naruto's, like, early Naruto part 1 or, like, lots of aspects of Shippuden to, like, My Hero, of course Naruto's better, or, like, Demon Slayer, of course Naruto's better, you know? It's to the standard that most people consider the series. So, I think that when I say Naruto's ending is bad, I think that's more so just, like, it felt very clumsy and kind of clumsy and kind of ridiculous and kind of dragged out at the same time as overdone, at the same time as, like, just a little bit silly with a lot of character statements and stated motivations and stuff like that came up towards the end. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not what we would have, a lot of people would probably have hoped, considering the standard of that series earlier and the scale of the story that was built, you know? Because the only other shonen that's built a story on the scale of Naruto and something like the Fourth Great Ninja War is One Piece. One Piece's scale is, like, obviously at this point even bigger, in terms of everything it's trying to bring together. So, it's just in comparison. That's all it is. It's just in comparison. Like, I think that if One Piece's ending, if the quality of it is similar to Naruto's ending, I would personally be disappointed. That's all I'm saying. Like, I don't... Like, yeah, I fucking expect One Piece's ending to be better than Bleach's ending. That's not the standard I'm holding it to, you know? Or, like, Fairy Tail's ending. That's not the standard I'm holding it to, you know? Keenan, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard is just evil because he's never gone to sleep. Just guarantee if he took a nap, he'd perk up a little bit. So there's nothing symbolic about it. It's just straight up. He just needs some sleep. Mahavid Sadeghi, thanks for the 5. Jinbe being Indian, it makes sense. India is the country of 1,000 religions. Diversity in Fishman Island was a place of 1,000 races. Variety, diversity. I'm not getting into it. I'm just not. Sure, I can see it. I'm just not going to get into it. Cigar Verx is comparing oppression is difficult, but they caused a literal famine in the country, killing millions. This is just one of the events in 100 years of rule. Okay, I don't want to get into this anymore. I believe you guys. I don't want to get into it anymore. Kid Smitty 94, thanks for the 5. Do you think the million troops on battleships will be fodder for Conqueror's Haki wave to give us a numerical comparison to Fishman Island Luffy? That's an interesting idea. I don't know about that, because it's possible that Luffy's just going to be wrapped up fighting somebody strong and won't be able to just unleash Conqueror's Haki. Because, like, a simple comparison is, you know, we could have seen Luffy's growth in Onigashima if Luffy had just released a wave of Conqueror's Haki to start off the battle when he was still under the dome. But Oda didn't write it like that because he just gave Luffy other priorities, like, you got to go upstairs, fight Kaido. So because that didn't happen there, I just wouldn't assume that would necessarily happen. But at the same time, I think the big difference is, if we really want to think about it like that, is that in Onigashima, there were a lot of other troops there to fight, right? So it would have kind of ruined the story if Oda had just killed the war short by having Luffy just knock out a bunch of characters with Conqueror's Haki. It's just like all the samurai sitting around with nothing to do. Whereas here, the Strats are vastly outnumbered, so I think it would be actually really cool if... it's similar, I guess, more so to a Fishman Island situation where the Strats are really outnumbered. So in that case, yeah, maybe Conqueror's Haki is going to be Oda's move here. That would be cool. William Marshall, thanks for the 5. It's cool that we're rooting for pirates over Marines at Egghead, but rooting for Marines over pirates at Hachinosu. The conflict of pirates versus Marines is so cool. That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that at all. That's a really funny point. I really like that. That's funny. Uh, Norgangi, thanks for the 2. Shame on me. I actually thought you'd put out a video. I'm moving past this. Sheriff Laffy, thanks for the 10. It will be interesting to see how Akainu takes Garp's capture. He cares a lot about the reputation of the Marines. On the other hand, Garp went on an unsanctioned mission, and Garp hates Akainu. Yeah, I wonder if it's a two-way street in terms of their hate. I wonder if... I don't think Garp trained Akainu at all, that's for sure. If it's just another one-off... in all likelihood, it's just going to be another, like, 1 or 2 panels, like a one-off panel of Akainu, like, reading the news or, like, the Marine report being like, things just keep getting worse and worse. It's like, what does Akainu do nowadays? It's just, it feels like Akainu's retired, practically, because his role is basically just to be in Marine headquarters, hear about things going wrong, and then, like, comment on how things are going wrong. I'm gonna fucking die if there's, like, actually, like, a post-Garp defeat panel. Like, we're cutting our way around, you know, different locations. People are finding out about Garp's defeat, capture of the legendary Marine. We get one panel cutting away to Marine headquarters, Akainu reading the Marine report, being like, things are just getting worse and worse. This isn't good. Great piece. Thanks for the 2. Katakuri will come to save Garp. Remember cover story. Why would Katakuri come to save Garp, though? Why does Katakuri care about any of these characters? JWP, thanks for the 5. I meant that Pizarro is strong enough to fatherize the rest of his crew minus Blackbeard and Aokiji. I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I mean, the island fruit is strong in theory, because you got to be able to fuck up islands to fuck with it, you know? But I don't think he can beat... Like, I don't think he's stronger than Shiryu, you know what I mean? Let's get the stream likes to 400. That's the next goal. Regia, thanks for the 5. I've been watching the new Bleach anime, and each episode adapts 4 to 5 chapters each. Each episode adapts 4 to 5 chapters each. Oh my god. That's so good. It must be nice. Why can't... I mean, obviously I know why One Piece can't do that, but like... One Piece, I mean, the pace of it would be too fast paced if it adapted 4 to 5 chapters, but I'm trying to think through Bleach right now, and Bleach, it feels like that'd be just right. 4 to 5 chapters, that's kind of awesome. How many episodes in is it? Like, how long before the fights start again? Let me take a look. 1,000-Year Blood War anime. Because don't get me wrong, I do want to watch Bleach, because as much as I make fun of the fights, there's still some cool shit that happens. That's for sure. The one fight I really want to see is Kyoraku versus Lile Baro. Bleach has been out for 10 years. I'm really fucking sorry if I spoiled anyone. It's been out... the series is... I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. That fight, it doesn't even happen. Ignore what I said. I was mixing it up. They fight different people. Don't even worry about it. Okay, so only one episode has come out of the part 2. Alright, cool. Just ignore what... Nothing happens. The fights are... That's the thing. Bleach fights are cool at the end of the day. It's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And not in the JoJo way where it seems self-aware that it's ridiculous. In the Bleach way where it thinks it's the coolest, edgiest shit in the world. So the fights are cool, and the anime is doing it great justice. Because I don't want to shit on any of the fights in the first half of the 1,000-Year Blood War. Like Yamato versus... I mean, even Yamato versus Ewok, it's kind of ridiculous as soon as you... Especially in the manga, and as soon as you strip away the anime's nice production quality. I don't mind spoiling this because I think it's just dumb. And also, this part of the anime has been out already for a while, right? But, like, turns out you weren't fighting Ewok. You were fighting what was it? Two twins that were born in some special circumstance. They've got this special specific ability and they've got a backstory, but you don't really need to know about it. It's two twins. And, well, that's Yamato's one weakness. These fucking, what is it? Is it two twins? Is it two twins or one twin? It's something like that. Jose Lario says, you like Zoro though, Morj? I don't like post-time skip Zoro that much, I'll tell you that. I think I've made that clear. Can someone explain what was the story behind how Yamato lost to fake Ewok? It was something about twins, right? Yuha Bak? I used to read it as Ewok. Royd Lloyd. Yeah, that's... Royd Lloyd. Yeah. So... Yamamoto. Yeah. Yamamoto, sorry. It's some what was it? Two twins? Wasn't it two twins? Am I crazy? Or was it just one guy? It was somebody pretending to be Ewok. You know what I mean? And it was some very specific circumstance that basically was just like, yeah, it was just some random ass shit, man. Random ass shit. And it's like, you know what the crazy ass thing is? They didn't even, the author didn't, I feel like the author is just making shit up to make shit up because he didn't need to do that. For those of you who don't know much about the anime, right? I'm not going to spoil what happens next, but let's just say that Yuha Box, his actual ability is perfectly good enough to beat Yamamoto if Kubo just said he beat Yamamoto straight up. His real ability is fucking broken as fuck. He could have just said, hey, here's his ability. He beats Yamamoto. It's a wrap. We would all have accepted it. Okay? You didn't need to make up. It's just, like, I don't, like, sometimes the author's just writing in weird-ass fight twists that really don't need to be a thing. It's like he just needs to try and flip expectations or something like that in the weirdest way imaginable. It's just like, yeah, the secret to beating Yamamoto. Royd Lloyd. Who the fuck is he? Well, let me just make him up out of my ass. Alright, it's done. Royd Lloyd. Furphy says they're twins that can turn into each other. Wow. Carson Cock, thanks for the 5. Garp parallels Whitebeard, invaded enemy headquarters at old age to save star pupil. Yeah, no, like a lot of people pointed out in previous streams that there's heavy parallels to the Marineford raid, and it smells like tragedy again. Main fight is versus an Admiral versus... Yeah, Garp versus... Whitebeard versus Akainu, Garp versus Aokiji. That's so cool, man. Both get sneak stabbed. That's so true. Does this end in Blackbeard's crew killing... Hey, hold on. Carson Cock just broke down all the parallels of this fight. Everyone give a big round of applause to Carson Cock. Despite his name, he's really educating all of us, I feel. Or at least me. Yeah, main fight is versus, like, the Garp... The beginning part I already got. But you just made me think, yeah. Garp versus Aokiji, that's kind of the flip side of Whitebeard versus Akainu. Both getting sneak stabbed, yeah. Scored Shiryu. I just don't think it ends in Garp's death. If it does, it could be very impactful for Luffy, even if Luffy's not there, just to hear it. The grandfather dying here, grandson died at Marineford. At the same time, I just feel like Blackbeard's plan to try and become a king, Garp would be the perfect piece for that, so it could just happen, you know? Blazing Blue, thanks for the 20. Do you think it might be possible for Luffy to interact with the Sunlight Tree Eve due to his fruit? Let me think on that. There might be some deeper connection with the tree given its ties to the sun, Fishman Island, and representing freedom. So far, the thing is that Luffy's fruit, the sun god fruit, it really has nothing to do with the literal sun. the sun god, the reason it's called the sun god is because sun represents symbolically freedom in One Piece, right? So really you could read it more so as the freedom god, right? And that fits Luffy's abilities much better. The freedom god fruit really is what it could be read as. So because of that, and I get what you mean, like the sun also representing freedom for the fishmen, like the sunlight, Eve tree, etc. But here, I just think that like actual connections to a tree that is good for sunlight, I just don't know if Luffy communicating with that tree makes that much sense to me. But it's an interesting idea. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 5. After Wano, I've fallen in love with reading One Piece weekly again. Oda's handling 5 different 10 out of 10 side stories, and 3 of those were purely fight stories. When is the last... Yeah, what's happening right now in One Piece is fucking insane in every corner of the world. I'm trying to think, when is the last time we had a chapter that wasn't great? Or wasn't at least good? You know what I mean? I feel like it's been a while. Even the last time we were in Egghead, not to say Egghead's not fun, but it's just not the same as what's going on in the outside world. Egghead was interesting. I think we got the York reveal. That was cool. And Egghead's about to be really interesting again when Saturn and Kizaru show up, you know? Reflexy, thank you. Could Egghead incident somehow save Garp and everyone? I'm still on the train that the Egghead incident is the destruction of Punk Records. I put out that video on that a while back. So I don't know if it would save Garp and everyone. I still feel like it just... What happens with the Marines here, it ends in defeat for them. Most likely, but I think the pivotal characters get away. I think only Garp is captured. I just don't think Garp is killed because of the Blackbeard plan. But maybe Garp is killed. It's always a possibility. Diaclia, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 7 months. I'm sick right now and have been in bed all day. I'm sorry, man. I hope it's nothing serious. Listening to you is so much fun. Thanks. It made me forget about my cold completely. Thanks for the great content. You know, it's funny. This is just a moment to step back, which is just like, for me, I'm speaking to 1,000 people right now, which is, it's just a strange feeling the moment you start thinking about it. Because for me, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just talking and responding. But there's 1,000 people watching, and at least to some degree, it's providing you guys with, you know, with entertainment. I don't know, it's just a weird thing to think about. I don't know how to explain it, man. It's just a weird thing to think about when you're in the moment of it. But like, it's weird to realize that, like, for a lot of people, this is like just a really good way to unwind, to feel a little bit better, to relax. Or I know a lot of people are working right now or procrastinating on work right now. I'm sure there are people who should be studying for something that happens tomorrow, or finishing some work project that's due tomorrow, but are instead doing this. I don't know. It's just funny. I don't know. Nothing particularly insightful to say there. It's just to stop and realize moment. JP, thanks for the 2. Bleach is in core 2 out of 4. Each core is 13, if I recall. 13 episodes. I heard that there's not really going to be breaks for Bleach right here, that it's just going to shoot straight, so the cores are just going to bleed into each other? Or is there going to be a break between the fall core of Bleach and then the spring core of Bleach? Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm pretty sure, is just going to run straight through its next 2 cores, which I'm excited for. As much as I have sometimes not been positive about Jujutsu Kaisen, I still think that the upcoming Shibuya incident arc, I'm sure anybody who's heard anything about Jujutsu Kaisen has heard about this. I think the upcoming Shibuya incident arc is going to be phenomenal in the anime. I think it's going to be a ton of fun to watch in the anime. Ton of fun. So I really look forward to that. I'm actually trying to refrain from watching any Jujutsu Kaisen right now so that I can binge some episodes. Yeah. Tala, thanks. Sanji's the only Straw Hat whose writing is better post-time skip. Yes, because Sanji's the only Straw Hat that got a full arc devoted to him, right? I would expect... Honestly, actually, even Usopp and Elbaf, I'm just like, how do you really top... With Sanji, it's 2 things, right? I think Sanji's better post-time skip because I think after Baratie, I don't think Sanji had an arc that was really, really strong for him. Like, he has had plenty of good moments and roles in lots of pre-time skip arcs, but I'm saying, like, really, really good for his character. In comparison, I would say, like, Skypiea is very, like, so if you remove the Strats from their origin arcs, right? We don't count the origin arcs, right? Nami has Skypiea, which is a great, great, great arc for her character. Very, very character-focused for her. Also for Chopper. Usopp obviously has Water 7 and Islabi. Zoro, you could argue Thriller Bark. I mean, Thriller Bark is most iconic for Zoro's character moments there. Sanji, I don't think had anything quite like that pre-time skip after Baratier, which is why I think that him getting Whole Cake Island, that, like, clearly is a better arc for him than anything that happened pre-time skip. The only thing you can really compare it to is Baratier, and Baratier is such a short arc that there's no comparison really. On the flip side, I'd say, like, Usopp, even if Usopp gets Elbaf, I have a hard time imagining Elbaf topping Water 7 and any Salabi for Usopp, because, like, those moments are some of the most emotionally raw and, like, visceral character, like, serious, like, character dynamics that we've ever had in One Piece. Like, probably the most serious and emotionally intense character dynamics that we've ever had in One Piece. The Luffy and Usopp dynamic in Water 7 and any Slavi. I can't imagine it topping that. Whatever happens in Elbaf. And that's not to, like, throw any shade on, like, Elbaf, like, oh, I think Elbaf just won't be able to measure up, or, like, it's more so just a testament to how good it was in Water 7 and Islabi, you know? The Neon Frequency, thanks for the 5. Do you think this will be Kobe's ace moment? Luffy got stronger after Ace died. Kobe has to get stronger to protect what's important to him. I would like to see Kobe show out a little bit, but I've said this for the longest time. I really don't think Kobe's role in the story needs to be being that strong. I think he can become Admiral level and such by the end of the story, right? Like, I think he, like, in terms of potential, he's probably the highest potential Marine there is, but he's still very, very green in terms of progress compared to all these other characters. I don't think his role is, and ever has been in One Piece, to be, like, a strong, pivotal, game-changing fighter. I think, and again, I think this should be best saved for a Kobe video that comes out maybe after next chapter, but how Kobe's been written throughout the story has been to play a very different role, in my opinion. So I think a role that's almost better without him being really, like, a top-tier strength character. So maybe he gets stronger, but I just don't think that he needs to be all that strong by the end of the story. I think in an epilogue, seeing him as, like, a future admiral or even fleet admiral of the Marines, that's great. But right now, this is a Kobe who's been, like, he's only been a fighter like, he's only been, like, like, learning to fight at all for 2 years, right? He's way behind everybody else in the story. Way behind. I don't think he needs to be that much, you know? I think what he brings as a character is very different. I think he works better as a character, honestly, without being strong just yet. MPA Slick, thanks for the 5. What's good, Senior Morgan Freeman? I'm a little late to the stream, but Garp the GOAT. Yep, agree. Hope you got your car back. My Nika, also get them likes up to 500. Yeah, let's get the likes up to 500. I did not get the car back, though. So, Garverk, thanks for the 2. There's only one person that can save Garp, Pinzoro. Yeah, but he was off-screen in an SBS, man. Caleb Brown, thanks for the 2. What we see from Kuzan, does this hype Kizaru right now? I think it depends how. I think that the 3 admirals are probably pretty close. Like, the OG. I think all the admirals are probably pretty close. Like, how do I say this? Like, I feel like unless Akainu got a boost, which I think is very possible, maybe in Locked Advanced Conqueror's Haki or something, I feel like Akainu is a bit stronger than Aokiji, who's probably a bit stronger than Kizaru, who in my opinion is probably a bit stronger than Fujitora, who's probably a bit stronger than Green Bull. So, you know, once you're comparing, like, Akainu to Green Bull, at that point there's, like, probably a solid gap, or Akainu to Fujitora, but, you know, we already saw Akainu, Aokiji, that's really close. I didn't get the sense that Kizaru's significantly behind the other 2 admirals at Marineford. So yeah, it is hyping Kizaru by extent, but at the same time, Kizaru was not considered for fleet admiral by anybody, so I would imagine that Kizaru is just, like, a tiny bit behind Aokiji as well. But, it probably all scales similarly to a degree. James Del Brune, thanks for the 10. If Garp were to be kidnapped, isn't that kind of repetitive, though? Unless he were to break out, which I doubt Blackbeard allows, someone would have to save him. Maybe Sengoku gets involved. You're saying like another rescue mission storyline. I think that it depends. Like, maybe nobody really rescues Garp. If the goal is basically using Garp as a bargaining chip, right, then Garp wouldn't ultimately need to be rescued. Garp would be traded to the world government to give Blackbeard king status, right? So it wouldn't be repetitive. It would just be like Garp would ultimately be freed. It would just be after the deal has been done, so no one would need to rescue him. So basically, in my mind, there's two options. Either Garp dies here, or Garp is successfully traded to the world government. Duck20, thanks for the 5. Thoughts on Chainsaw Man? I'm losing interest ever since the Falling Devil arc started. I'm kind of with you. I feel like... And like the recent chapters, they've been interesting in terms of opening up the... potential of the direction of the story. Although, do I even care that much about the new little arc that's forming in like the direction? It feels kind of like placeholdery almost, but the lore implications that were dropped recently are interesting for sure. But in general, for me, since the Falling Devil arc, I think when the Falling Devil arc began, I was like, yeah, this is Chainsaw Man at its best. I think over the course of it, I felt like a lot of the subtle, and I've said this before, but I don't want to get into too much examples. I felt like a lot of the subtlety of the writing that was there throughout the start of Chainsaw Man Part 2 had faded away, and kind of been replaced by much more heavy-handed, on-the-nose writing. And I've said that many times when it comes to Chainsaw Man Part 2, but it's still my opinion. And now, as things have progressed, I feel like the Chainsaw Man author... Like, I think some of the novelty of the way that he writes characters and their particularly crude, abrupt dialogue, it's not really doing that much for me these days, maybe just because I'm too used to it or something like that, or because I'm not vibing with how he's doing the more nuanced aspects of the story. I don't know. But I'm not as on board. Like, I'm still liking Chainsaw Man, I think, but I'm not like eagerly waiting for the next chapter. Chapter 135 had been out for a little bit before I even got back to like checking it out, Yeah, I don't want to get too much into... Double R Lisa's Family opening the fridge had me rolling. Yeah, like Chainsaw Man's humor I still like. It's just that I think I need to like the the other aspects of what's going on for me to really enjoy the humor at the same time, I also think that there's one thing... How do I say this? Okay, let me say this real quick. Because I'm not trying to shit on Chainsaw Man Part 2. We kind of just need to give it time. I think what Chainsaw Man Part 1's biggest strength was for the majority of its run was the way the plot was structured. It felt like you're kind of falling down this rabbit hole where your expectations are being flipped and flipped and flipped, and you're kind of realizing just how much deeper and darker the story really is at every turn. And it's kind of just fucking with you constantly, basically. And the reveals, the changes of pace, the general twists and turns, they're so rapid and they stack so quickly on top of one another that it's just a roller coaster, right? So that was the biggest strength of Chainsaw Man Part 1. I think it also did a lot of other things really well, such as its themes, approach to dialogue, things like that. And I elaborate on that in my philosophy of Chainsaw Man video on the Manga Morj channel. But I think that its biggest strength was its roller coaster plot. Chainsaw Man Part 2, I felt like its biggest strength for the longest time was actually the nuance in how it was approaching its character writing, right? On a level that was above Chainsaw Man Part 1. But now I feel like it's lost some of that, and it's shifted into a bit more of like a slow burn sort of stage. And the plot is interesting, and we do have question marks and stuff, but it's not as rapid fire, like breakneck. Here's a new major twist. Here's a new crazy revelation. Here's a new thing that kind of flips everything you knew on your head, as like each arc of the previous of Part 1 was doing, right? So I think that the unique strength that Part 2 had towards the beginning, it's kind of lost that, which was its superior character writing and dialogue, and then it doesn't have the same strength as Chainsaw Man Part 1 just yet. But at the end of the day, Chainsaw Man Part 1 took some time to get going and really get into that rhythm of just crazy twist after twist, like crazy plot event after plot event, whatever. So I think maybe we're just in the stage of Part 2 where we kind of got to give it some time to basically see. Yabuki says, does anyone else think Denji's character is getting a bit stale? I definitely think that Chainsaw Man Part 2 was at its strongest when it was focusing almost entirely on Asa and minimally on Denji, and allowing Denji to come in and just be himself. But now it feels like we're going back to Denji a bit more, and some of his stuff is getting a bit repetitive, in my opinion. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. We like bread and circuses. You're the best clown we got. Sean, that's really mean. Come on now, man. Come on now, man. I trusted you. Thought we've been doing this for a while now, man. Come on now. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 10. Are you ready to see the first Admiral and Gorosei getting packed by a real Yonko crew? The advantage Vegapunk will have over the fleet. Trying to understand this. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Both Kizaru and Saturn. The advantage Vegapunk will have over the fleet once York is done. We might see one of the most unique fights in One Piece. Yeah, I wonder how much Vegapunk will be involved in the fight. In terms of utilizing Egghead's defenses. Alright guys, I'm gonna call the stream in 5 minutes if that's good. Debilar Ali says, did they officially announce a movie for Chainsaw Man Bombark? I want to take a look. I don't see anything there for it. Did they announce Chainsaw Man Part 2? Can someone confirm if we have a Chainsaw Man Part 2? Maduke says, quit talking about Chainsaw mid and talk about Goat Piece. That hurts because I like Chainsaw Man a lot. I'm not that hot on Chainsaw Man right now, though. One Piece, I think right now, we've still got a few more things we can talk about from the chapter, but at the same time, it is about wrapping up time. So let's see if we got any more unique questions that haven't come up already. Aokiji is going to kill Garp or be involved just like how he sealed off Zephyr in movie Z. So what was said towards the end of this chapter does make me think that Blackbeard's not just going to pop up and finish their work for them. For a little bit, I was curious if Blackbeard is going to pop up and be the one to end the fight. But I think that, like, with the final statement by Pizarro in this chapter, it does seem to me like this is meant to basically be a big win by the Blackbeard Pirates. I mean, he says that he's going to make a name for himself, but I think we can assume that it's not just going to be Pizarro, right? Vice Admiral Garp and his squad of Rising Stars failed to rescue the hero Captain Koby. Avala Pizarro, 4th captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, used his awesome new power to crush their foolish plan. That's funny. Pizarro's got a pretty sick ability. Pretty sick ability. I wonder if he's going to use it on some island that's not Hachinosu. It's high time we got a crack at the spotlight. Tomorrow's headlines. Yeah, I like to believe that the Blackbeard Pirates get the win instead of Blackbeard himself. And I guess the big question is basically, is it going to be like Aokiji mainly, or is it going to be yeah, is it going to be Aokiji mainly, or is it going to be I don't feel like it's going to be mainly Pizarro. I feel like, is it going to be Aokiji mainly, or is it going to be like the general Blackbeard Pirates, you know? Like, does Aokiji go down? I have a hard time imagining Garp beating Aokiji here, but I feel like the implication is that this is important for the Blackbeard Pirates themselves to win, so I don't know. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 5. We might see Shanks again pulling up to Hachinosu like Marineford and save Navy again, and that will start the Blackbeard versus Shanks storyline. That is an interesting idea. But I feel like I feel like it's almost too early for Shanks to fight Blackbeard, you know what I mean? Like, if the next time we see Shanks versus Blackbeard, it's like Shanks in the story, it's to lose to Blackbeard. I don't know about that. Unless you mean like this is the moment that they basically like set up for a fight down the line. I don't know. Caleb Brown, thanks for the 2. Morj, do you think Pudding and or Moria were freed? Yeah, I think so. I forgot about Pudding, I'm not gonna lie. I think Moria's established he was freed, right? Or something like that. Pudding I straight up forgot about. Pudding being freed, that's crazy. If Pudding is... No, Pudding can't be freed because Pudding is right now with the Blackbeard ship itself, right? So Pudding can't have been freed, right? Dabilara Lee says Aokiji carried, they were getting cooked if he wasn't there. Yeah, I think Garp could solo this crew if Aokiji wasn't there. Which is just, that's insane. Like, that's pretty fucking insane. Alright, I'm going to answer one more normal question. I think I started too much Chainsaw Man talk. Hope I didn't turn anyone off the series. I think it's a phenomenal series. It's just not loving the current stuff. It's not even bad. It's just not loving it. Do we have any other real questions? Mostly seeing statements here. I want to end it on a question. Redox says Garp is more strong than expected. What the fuck, Morj? Yeah, that's the thing, because I think the big question before all of this began was like, can Garp beat Aokiji, right? Can Garp beat Aokiji? Can he beat an Admiral? An Admiral in his prime versus Garp, right? Can Garp do that? That was the big question. I don't think anybody expected that Garp would be literally fighting Aokiji and the rest of the Blackbeard Pirates and getting cheap shotted by them and still be going even with Aokiji, you know? And you know, it's not to be underestimated. That's not. I don't want to undersell Aokiji just yet because we don't know what he's going to do next chapter. He hasn't used Awakening or anything. But from the way the fight's gone so far, right? It's made Garp look crazy good. The fact that he's done this much is more than I think most people expected. With the entire Blackbeard Pirates coming at him, cheap shotting him, and he's still like trading blows with Aokiji, and it's like straight up even. I think, yeah, like Aokiji also just from. So when Garp did the blue hole attack last chapter, not last chapter, but before this, we got to this part of the story. When he did the blue hole, it looks like it was very effective. I thought it was just like a warm up kind of attack, you know, like just like I don't know, not something to really think much about, you know, like we're just getting the fight rolling, kind of like Marco rolling up and like kicking Kizaru. Obviously, Garp's way stronger than Marco, but I mean like. is it a thing to take that seriously, or is this just like, you know, a friendly warm-up throw? But Aokiji looks like, even from the start of this chapter, he looks roughed up from just that attack. You know what I mean? Like just that one move already did a number on him. It's kind of crazy. Page 12 says, "Hey Morj, how are you today?" That's a good question, but I meant more so a One Piece question. Let's see if we got one more One Piece question. Wrench Dodger 2000 says, "Where does Fujitora show up next?" That's a good question. I don't know. He's not... Okay, let's order elimination, right? So Green Bull, I think, is headed back to Impel Down with Weevil in tow. I think that's where Green Bull is. Kizaru is off to Egghead Island. Akainu is just at his desk jerking off like usual. So what is Fujitora up to? He's not going to Egghead, not going there. Maybe Fujitora is going to be sent over to deal with some cross-guild related thing. That's the only thing I can really think of. Maybe. Because even the revolutionary armies, they're not even talking about the admirals. They're like, we have to worry about the God's Knights being sent out and marshaled next. So it sounds like that's their thing. So the only group that's kind of left unattended, right? Like Blackbeard Pirates, they're dealing with their own. They're dealing with Garp and shit. Egghead Island, they got Kizaru. Shanks isn't doing anything, so there's no reason to send an admiral after him. Green Bull's cleaning up Weevil and stuff. So if Fujitora is being sent anywhere, maybe it'd be after Cross Guild. You know, I think that's the only thing I've got off the top of my head. And last question, thanks Anime Dimension for being a Yonko tier member for 8 months. Initially, there were spoilers saying Gorosei split up Saturn to Egghead, Gandhi to Wano, and soon it turned out to be fake. For I feel like this can happen. Gandhi to Wano? You think they're sending shit Gorosei to Wano? It's kind of crazy that Look, I don't think they're going to marshal the Gorosei like this, like soldiers, to just send them out and around. The only reason I think Saturn is being sent... Now we know Saturn's a good fighter, but the only reason I would imagine Saturn's being sent is because we were explained that that's how you take over the Seraphim, you know? You control the Seraphim because the Gorosei are the ones that have final authority over the Seraphim. So I imagine that that's why Saturn was sent, but Saturn also happens to be really strong, so, you know, it's just two things, like, two benefits to sending Saturn. But I imagine that the Gorosei in general are not just being sent around like admirals, you know, to do the dirty work. Okay, sorry, 2 more questions real quick. Just gotta answer these supers. Abyssal Leviathan, thanks for the 5. Morj, there are frozen people other than Hibari, so it's implied that Kuzan and Garp were fighting off-screen, unless Vasco/San Juan roughed up Garp. Oh, that's a good point. Unless Oda's not being that careful about it. But then either way... Okay, so that would mean that the blue hole didn't do all that damage to Aokiji by itself, which is, I guess, good for Aokiji, but then the flip side is that it means that Garp and Aokiji had been fighting off-screen, and it seems like Aokiji had been getting fucked up. Then the other Blackbeard Pirates started attacking Garp. Garp fended them off, and then he saw that Aokiji was back for basically round 2, which also doesn't look that great for Aokiji. So either it's like Blue Hole did that by itself, just one attack, or it's like they've been going at it for a bit, and Aokiji was actually out of the picture for a little bit before coming back, which I also don't think is a great look. Or Garp was at least slightly winning the fight before, and then the other back. You know what I mean? Either way, I feel like so far Garp has looked a little bit better. So far. I don't think you can argue Aokiji's look better. So either like Garp has looked a little bit better, or they're about even. But I wouldn't be surprised if Aokiji shows us some more stuff up his sleeve in the next chapter. So, Anime Dimension, thanks for the 10. If that is true, I see Gorosei going to Egghead, Wano, Elbaf, Fishman Island, and final one maybe Alabasta. I believe this is an interesting idea. I would definitely agree it's an interesting idea, but so far I took it as basically like, even from what the revolutionaries said, they said like, oh, God's Knights are the ones that are going to be sent out and about now that we fucked with him and all of that stuff, right? So I still get the sense that the Gorosei are not the type that would just be shipped off to do stuff like that. I feel like they're too high status. I feel like they stay put in Morijua for the most part, even in stuff like this. I guess that, like, again, when we were first shown Saturn being sent to Egghead, that seemed to make sense to a lot of people at the time, because it was like, yeah, you're sending a Gorosei over to take over the Seraphim, because it was established that that can't be done over Den Den Mushi, so you got to send one over in person. I feel like that reasoning doesn't apply to sending the Gorosei to other locations. But maybe that is just what the world government has decided to do at this point. So, anyway. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Yeah. Thank you very much. Oh, Papa Dogsucker also pointed out that Saturn is head of the science division, which I totally fucking forgot about. I forgot that he's the one in charge of all this science stuff. That's a interesting, very relevant point. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate everybody coming through. Yeah, it was fun. A really, really fun chapter. Really, really great chapter. And the best part is we know that next week is probably following up on this chapter. So, you know, great time to finally get One Piece back. That break didn't feel that long to me at the end of the day for whatever reason. I forgot that we were on a 5-week break before this, but we're back. All right, guys. I will talk to y'all later. Thanks again for coming through.